Well, folks, it looks like we're here. It is awesome to have you. We're going to have a quick 15-minute session today on how to move from CMO to CRO. My name is Darryll Praill, and I am the Chief Revenue Officer here at VanillaSoft. So I want to thank you for joining me. Let's see if we can go fast and furious. I've got nothing prepared in terms of slides. I like to make this informal, conversational. So if you have a question, fire it off at me, but let me go through the common questions I get asked on a very regular basis. So here we go. First question they always ask is, all right, so tell me a bit about yourself and how this is so important. All right, so my background, I was hired at VanillaSoft to be a chief marketing officer. So how often does a marketing person become the person in charge of revenue? That's what's notable. That's what's significant. That's what brings me here. That's why it's of interest. Now, that's a really interesting question because historically the answer is never, ever did they ever do it. And in fact, the downside of that was they would always promote somebody from sales to be a chief revenue officer. And that's got a lot of negative connotations. I'm going to explain why, because the big thing is what is the role of the CRO? Because once you understand the role, then you understand why this is an interesting big deal. The role of the CRO typically is to own the whole customer journey, the whole revenue, right? So from marketing, generating the initial lead and getting them into the funnel, to then that feeding into sales and sales, working the deal, closing the deal, getting the initial sale, and over to customer success to actually grow the customer, expand their revenue, make sure they do not churn. It's all revenue related. You spend a little money up top, you make some money, you grow the account. That's it. If they churn, then you got to sell more, yada, yada, yada. So everybody assumes that that's got to be a salesperson. Now, what I said, why was it a bad thing? Well, because a salesperson only looks at sales. So when they come in to be chief revenue officer, they have no context on how to do marketing. They have no context on how to do success. And then because they have that lens, all their decisions are made with a bias. So we'll take money away from marketing because, hey, that's fluff, and I'll hire more reps. And we'll take money away from success because I got to hire more reps. It's all about the numbers. That's the quota. And that's the mistake. That's the mistake right there. Now, one thing you need to know is that many people will get the title of being CRO, but their only ownership is sales. And that's a problem. That means they're just a chief sales officer. They're just a VP of sales. Instead of giving them money, they give them a title. So there you go. Don't do that. A chief revenue officer owns at least 2, sales and marketing, or all 3, sales, marketing, and success. That's the first part. So why would a marketer get it? Because Darryll, you would say, if your logic is a sales guy doesn't know marketing or success, then conversely, a marketer doesn't know sales or success. And boom, you're right. You're exactly right. And while I was hired to be a CMO and became a CRO, that's actually not my background. So let's go into that and why it matters. Because one of the questions I get asked all the time is, Darryll, how do I line myself up to get that CRO role? That's the question I get all the time. And I say, you have to do everything. You have to have done success. You have to have done marketing. I am a computer programmer by education. I spent the first 6 odd years developing. And when I was coding, I was actually doing a lot of customer support and customer success. So I would do not just the coding, because it was a smaller company, I would actually work with the clients because then they would influence the features and functions. So I understood the role of success and how that was instrumental in actually getting additional revenue. And I ran a success team as part of that process. That's the first part. Second part is, I sold. So when I actually got out of school, my first job was not coding. I was burnt out of coding. My first job was to be a photocopier salesperson. That's right, a photocopier salesperson, door to door for 6 months. And I said, this sucked. I went back to coding. After my coding came to an end, I wanted to get out of coding. How did I do that? I became a sales engineer. So I was a technical expert right there, right? Helping the sales reps close deals, do proof of concepts, everything else. So I did sales engineer. Sales engineer led to product management, led to product marketing, led to marketing. And that's when I said, ooh, I kind of like this. But then I went back into sales. And then eventually I was a VP of marketing by the time I was 29. I was a VP of sales and marketing by the time I was in my mid 30s. And I went back and forth over the years. I've now been a CMO 3 or 4 times, and I've been a VP. This is my third leadership role in sales. I've done the job, all 3 jobs. I understand how revenue works from top of funnel to middle of funnel to bottom of funnel to rinse and repeat. So if you want to be the CRO, you have to have that variety. Part of that means you doing lateral moves, moving from one team to the other. If you're in marketing, it means you have to sell, and that scares the hell out of you. I understand. If you're in revenue operations, brilliant. You understand the sales process. You understand the tech. Do some marketing. Do some selling. Even if you're just on the phones doing inside sales, whatever it might be. But the beauty is you've got the technology and you understand that, so you can leverage that to have more success than most people. You have access to the messaging, the cadences, the sequences, all that kind of stuff. So you're probably best suited in the revenue ops role, because revenue ops spans all 3 of that. And I own revenue ops too, as well as sales enablement in my CRO mandate right now, because to make sales and marketing and success work, you need to have the operational technology stack and workflows and processes that drive the behaviors you want. Therefore, it makes sense that I own it. So honestly, the folks who are in RevOps, I think today are the most qualified to become a CRO of the future. I look back on my sales engineering experience that was comparable. I was always doing integrations. There you go. That's my background. So that's the role. Now, the question I get asked next is, well, how did you even get considered to be that role? Because you were the marketing guy. Fair enough. One of the things you need to do to ever be considered to be a CRO is you need to understand sales. What's the sales process? What's their compensation plan? How does that drive their behaviors? What are their metrics? You also need to create a service level agreement between sales and marketing, so that, or sales and success, or whomever, so that you understand the conditions of the rules of engagement between the organizations, because the CRO manages the overall goals and aspects of the organization. They're not in there every day, working the phones or configuring the landing pages or writing, custom Salesforce objects to do integration. That's not their job. They have a team for that. But you still need to have that service level agreement so you understand the terms and conditions of how we work together. That's the thing. If I look at how did I put myself in position, it was because I understood the SLAs. I made the SLAs. I also understood the compensation plans. I also understood how they were measured. The big thing about RevOps is they create the dashboards. So you have to understand how things are measured. That way, I could go to, as a CMO, as an executive, I could go to my peers on the executive table and say, hey, head of sales, how's it going on your MQL to SQL conversion ratios? Hey, can you talk to me about your conversion ratios from stage to stage to stage? How is this person performing versus that one? How's your average deal size? Yada, yada, yada. And I could even go down into each individual account and tell them where they're at. So when we're having review at the executive table and say, well, where is ABC Inc. doing on that account? And the head of sales, Samers, I can say, I can tell you what's going on there. That's the thing. You need to know sales better than sales. You need to know the numbers better than the numbers. You need to know the people better than their people. You need to know the comp plan better than their own, accountant bean counters. Sounds terrible. If you don't get those skills, learn how to actually read basic finance numbers. Once you know that, and they see you're active and you're involved, you got to do your own job well. So I was the head of marketing. I understood that I was bringing in leads, and the leads weren't getting action fast enough or converting fast enough, yet I was being held accountable. So then I would insert myself into sales to help make those processes go better. You make sure people are aware that you're doing that. You can do that casual conversation. It's a long game. After a while, like in my case, you start to see that sales is struggling. So then you can go, what I did, this is literally what I did. I went to my CEO and I said, I love my head of sales, but if you're ever thinking of replacing them, I would like to throw my hat in the ring. And they laughed at me when I did that. I'm not making this up. Yeah, Darryll, you're the marketing guy. I'm like, yeah, but I know more about this than they do. So then a year goes by and they were looking to make the change, and they talked to lots of consultants, and they came back and they said, the logical person, honestly, because they're out of the gate, is Praill. Let's offer him the job and see if he wants it. That's how I put myself. I told them. I made sure people knew what I was doing. I knew the numbers, and I saw what's going on, and I brought it to the attention over and over and over again to the CEO. We're not hitting our numbers. Why not? I'm feeding them enough leads. And then I made sure that I was there to do it. And then when they offered me the job, I didn't just say yes. I gave, these are my terms and conditions. right? I needed a sales enablement team. I needed a RevOps team. I needed a certain budget. I needed certain conditions on where my employees were allowed to work from or not work from. I needed certain compensation plans. I needed sales targets. So we had that negotiation up front because you only get one chance to negotiate before you take on that CRO role. What did I accept the role? I accepted the role because as a leader in the company, I get compensation based on how the company performs. Many of you will also have equity in the company. If you are compensated based on company revenues, or you have equity, or you have both, then if you're the CRO, you control your own destiny. As opposed to if you're a marketer or a RevOps or a success person looking at the salespeople and say, if they don't close their business, I don't get my bonus. I have no control, right? Or my equity isn't worth anything. That's why I took the job. Beyond that, it gave me a chance to finally put into play all the stuff that I knew in my head was right from everything I'd done, I'd seen, I read, everything else. Now, common mistakes that happen when you take on the job, if you ever get here, is that you try to do it all yourself. And whether you're becoming a CRO or a first-time VP, the same logic applies. You're moving from this role to this role. When you do that, you have to abandon your old job because you now have a new job. The tendency is we want to keep on doing what we were doing because we were really good at it, plus do what we're doing now. That's a mistake. When I first became the VP of marketing, it took me 3 months, and my employees doing an intervention coming into me and saying, Darryll, you're editing all of our collateral, you're editing our press releases, you're editing everything, and you're finding errors, and it's annoying as hell, but we're the writers. Let us write. You need to go and talk to the analysts. You need to go talk to important customers. You need to go talk to the journalists. That's your job now. And I'm like, damn, my own employees give me the intervention. It's the same when you're the CRO. The first thing my CEO said to me was, Darryll, if I give you this job, you must hire a head of sales and a head of marketing. You must backfill yourself in the marketing role, and you be the strategic person so they can do the daily tactical. That's a big thing whenever you become the CRO. So as a whole, your job as a CRO is to see the big picture, to have that experience. If you're not practicing and doing it yourself, you're never going to succeed there. The best advice I can give you is to actually network like a machine and actually ask other people what's going on. Before I took this job, I actually did just that. I picked up the phone and I called a lot of my personal friends. I called, Scott Leese. I called Jeff Bajorek. I called Mark Hunter. I called all these people and I said, should I take the job? What am I not asking? Am I equipped to succeed, or will I fail? Because I don't want to put myself in a position of failure. That's the big thing. So building that network up is massive. Now, another thing, as a CRO, you become not only the person in charge of the whole enchilada internally, the revenue side, you become a spokesperson. You are an ambassador for the brand. So I will tell you now, you need to build your own personal brand profile up, because that's a critical attribute of those leaders. So as a CRO, if my reps has got a big deal, they're working, they're cooking up, and they're stuck, and they want to come and use me to come go executive to executive, I'm going to reach out to that executive and say, hey, our people are talking. Can we talk? They're going to look me up on LinkedIn and say, who the hell is this Praill guy, and do I care about him? If my brand isn't good, I'll never get that call, even though I've got the same title. If my brand is good, I'll get that call, I'll get that deal. That's a big thing. Part of why I got that job is because I had the street credibility from the industry that thought if they announced that Praill got the job, a marketing guy got the job, there'd be a positive feedback reaction. So everything you're doing now is to build to be there. So if you want to go like I did from CMO to CRO, from RevOps to CRO, from a sales rep to CRO, it doesn't really matter. If your goal is to be a CRO, you've got to invest in doing all of the disciplines. You've got to have a game plan. You've got to network. You've got to understand numbers. All right. You have to understand organization, how it works, the service level agreements between the groups, the rules of engagement. More than anything, you need to understand people. You got to manage people. You got to understand the dynamics of the people. I will tell you this, in my job as CRO, I rarely do revenue stuff. You know what I do all day? I'm a therapist and a counselor to the rest of the people on my team. That's my job. I'm not making this up. So you got to develop those skills in advance. The best way to do that, invest in yourself and read, talk to people like me, talk to others, ask for their advice. That's all I got to say to you. It's people, it's skills, It's doing all the other jobs. It's asking for help. It's having clear rules of engagement and expectation and having a plan. My name is Darryll Praill. I'm a CRO. Follow me on LinkedIn. Hope that helped.